I'm going to go up to this corner and just add a little bit of value. Some more darker value. So just color pick the darkest value there and just make it a little bit more black. I'll go with 30% opacity here. Maybe 10% opacity, so it's a little more subtle. Because I want this water to remain really calm and smooth for the most part. But I do want some details in there. I flip canvas horizontally. Add a little bit more dark up in this corner. Let's go to 30% opacity. Then down to 10% to kind of blend it really smoothly. Let's just do a few dark. Let's go to 10% opacity. Let's just do a few dark little waves. Here. This is almost like negative painting because I'm painting in the transparent parts. Because this light blue here is a lot of it's sky reflection, which is why it's so light. Or at least the transparent parts, like the fully transparent parts, are a little bit darker. At least that's what I'm kind of indicating by painting in these dark places, because if there are dark places like this, this isn't going to be the color of the water anymore, you know. This color is going to be, this is going to be the real color, and this is just a color on top you get from the sky. And, or the, you know, the sun lighting up the water a little bit. I don't know if I think I'm going to erase this part here. Let me see. It's kind of looking a little bit too rough, actually. And just keep it more smooth for now. Just kind of fade this out. Maybe I was adding a little bit too many waves. You're going to get more waves the closer you get to the beach because there's more agitation. So if I add too many out here, it's going to look off unless I add bigger waves closer to the beach, which is probably why that was looking off to me. It's going to be more calm. The farther it is out in the ocean. Yeah, that water coming up into shallow water is what creates waves on a calm day, you know. There's just going to be a lot more up here than back here. So maybe if I add a little bit more here, it will look good if I go back. But right now, I don't have that yet. Or I don't know if I even want that. Let's see. So, I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to make a new layer. Make a new layer, and I'm going to do a little bit more horizontal lines. I'm just going to see if it looks good to add a little bit in between these kind of wave patterns. See if there's any like little tiny horizontal things. Let's go to white. If that looks good or not. No, I don't think so. I think it really does just kind of keep more horizontal, or there's not going to be that much detail in this forward movement when when the waves are so small and the water is so smooth. You maybe smooth some of these areas out. Or do maybe a little bit of cyan color on top to kind of help define a few waves. Because, remember, if waves peek up out of the water a little bit, the sun's going to be able to infiltrate it and illuminate it easier. So you could have little waves that are cyan, not just the sky reflection. And the shadowed areas would be a more blue color. In some instances, I'm going to kind of do a mix maybe. Do white here, 10% opacity, because I keep painting this purple onto this bright green. Doesn't look as good because of the value shift. So white, painting white anywhere is going to it's going to make the color below it brighter, no matter what value it is. So it's a good, safe thing to paint at low opacity, to just brighten an area. Not brighten, lighten, I guess I should say. So you're making it whiter. Yeah, brightness has to do a lot with removing black and just going to a pure color. And lightness is adding white to something. So you get brighter going up here all the way up to a pure color, and you get lighter going up to white, or going over to white. Little art theory there, or art definition. I'm going to add a more cyan blue here. Well, really subtly, so I'll go to 10%, just to make this maybe a little less gray. $10 here. Maybe I will try to add just pure white. Make a really bold kind of line here. I don't know how to merge this together in the correct way yet. Let's try and experiment, see what looks good. I always find it easier just to put it down and just try it out and then see if it looks good. If it doesn't, just erase it, but I find that easier than debating with myself if it's going to look good. Maybe I have to get rid of, see this horizontal line going through there? I wonder if that's making it look weird. Like, you want to kind of avoid X shapes in your art like that. Kind of contradicting each other, the wave movement, so maybe I'll try to kind of blend that out a little bit. Do more of a movement. It's more in line with everything else. Maybe I'll just fold Fold that over and fold. I'm just going to see if that's the kind of the movement I want. Is that how you kind of blend a horizontal and a vertical movement together? Not sure. Doesn't look terrible. Maybe I need more cyan blue on this side so it's not like totally splitting the colors of my ocean. This line, you know, maybe it needs some more colors that kind of bleed through that line. There's not such a sharp transition. And erase this part. I don't think that was turning out very good. I think my angles might be a tiny bit off. Or just my design was, my line design just wasn't too great. Kind of like that shape a little bit better. Perhaps. Maybe just erase this line altogether here. Like just have this fade into this lighter blue more subtly. I'm going to follow this curved movement as it's going into this flare out on the beach, you know. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to do a new layer. And I think I'm just going to work on something else for a little bit. Let's add a little bit of value to the sand, and then maybe I'll add some starfish to the sand, because I want to add a little bit more interest or some more subjects to this art. Maybe add some yellow color. That's too dark of yellow. Let's do lighter yellow. Kind of maybe add a little bit of color change to this sand. Maybe a little bit of dark in some areas. I don't know. That might make it look like it's wet. Might take away from this wet spot if I put some dark over there. Maybe I'll just add a little bit more white to everything. Kind of push up the contrast, the value changes in my painting. Because that way I can use these lighter colors to kind of make a little bit of waves in the sand even. Give it a little bit more character. I'm adding a little bit of a red tint over in this area to once again, you know, do some hue changes, some color changes within the painting to add more variety. Let's make some starfish before we get too far into that, because everything you add is going to change the decision of where you want your light and dark areas in your sand, or how you want your sand to look, because it's going to need to fit your the things on it, you know. What color of starfish do you think? Maybe like a pinkish, more of a peach starfish. Make it a little bit darker. This is be a 5-pointed starfish. So this is on a new layer, so I can just erase what I want here. That red color kind of looks cool. In the overall thing, maybe I want a white starfish too. Or maybe these are like little shells. Maybe I don't want everything to be starfish. So maybe add some little shells. I'm going to go to my lasso tool and maybe I'll just right click and do a layer copy. And I'll go to transform. Maybe just free transform. Make this a little bit smaller and rotate a little bit. If it's rotated like that, it's going to look like it's on like a mound of sand. So maybe I don't want it rotated quite that much. Maybe I'll have it over here somewhere kind of far away. Just so I don't have to draw another starfish and then I can draw another unique one. You know, you can copy some things in your picture, but you don't want to go too overboard or else everything will look similar to each other. There won't be any uniqueness in your different subjects. I feel like this is a little bit too, it needs to be a little bit more skinnier because that will change the perspective. Because if you just draw it like this, it's going to look like it's standing straight up in the sand. You would draw starfish like that if this was a direct down view, but this isn't a direct down view. It's more of halfway down, halfway forward. So I just need to stretch it out a little bit. That'll make it look like it's laying down flatter. I think I'm gonna maybe make it a little bit bigger. Free transform, and maybe this starfish is really close to the viewer. You know, it could be on a different mound of sand, really close. Because the bigger I can do the starfish, the more detail I can add to it. So maybe that's a good size. And I'll do like smaller seashells out here so that you get the impression that maybe this part is closer. Maybe I should add some like rocks or something. Like a different type of, like I could add maybe a stick, like some sort of debris on the ocean. I don't know if that looks good though. Let me kind of redefine this starfish here. I'm going to merge these two layers so that all my starfish is on the same layer. My starfish and my shells. I'm going to stretch these sides out just so My starfish looks a little bit more flat. It's laying flat. Stretch out these two sides. And I'm going to lock the layer transparency here. It's just this little box here, and that will allow me to paint and change my starfish, but it's not going to let me draw outside of the layer that I locked. So this is an easy way to change the colors, add some value to a thing that you've already painted that's on a separate layer. Add some white maybe to this starfish. I'm not going to get super into details right now, just try to get the colors that I want on this starfish down. Maybe I should decide where the sun is coming from. Because at this point, the sun could really be coming from any direction. I feel like maybe here, because there's like, it's brighter maybe in this area. Bright in this area too, so I could have the sun just shining straight down as well, but that's not as interesting. So maybe I'll have it, coming from the side, the left side. So maybe I'll draw all my lightest areas on that part, the left part. I'm going to make a new layer below my starfish layer. I'm going to make shadows to kind of even more solidify the sun direction. Maybe I'll add more orange to it. At first, let's add some orange first to this area. And then I'll add a darker color, a grayish color. Depending on how far up I want the sun to be, it's going to have longer or shorter shadows. I don't think I want this to be like at sunset, so maybe I'll have more shorter shadows here. Not so drastic. If it's sunset, you might have a shadow that's like way long like that, But this is a bright sunny day still. Let's see. I feel like I might want to add either different kinds of shells, just darker shells, to give a little bit of variety to things. I love color variety. See, if I add a little like curve to it here, it will make it kind of look like the sand. It's buried in the sand a little bit. I'm gonna lock the layer again. Kind of work on the starfish again. I don't think I liked the way that light was on that starfish necessarily. Because maybe this part of the starfish is also being shaded a little bit. Let's try adding a large shape here, maybe like a rock or something. Because you want big, medium, and small shapes in your composition. So if I have, maybe I should have a large subject in my painting that's not No, that doesn't look too good. Kind of like the open sand, actually. Let me try to find where maybe some shadows are again. Yeah, a softer brush here. The shadows are going to get darker right underneath the subject. So maybe I'll add those really dark shadows right now. Let me flip it, see how it's looking. Maybe add a little bit of detail. This is the closest starfish. So maybe I'll look better if I add some detail. Making this top really short, almost like it's curling around where you can't see it. So it makes the starfish look like it's laying flatter on the ground. Starfish have these little, it's kind of like a rough texture on some of them. Like almost like these dotted kind of like indents, and like little knobs that kind of stick out. Maybe I'll add a little bit of color variation. I'm gonna lock my layer again and see if I can maybe add a little bit of yellow to this. Let's go to 10% opacity. Maybe just a brighter orange. Just maybe right along this area. It's a little bit too white. Make it a little bit more orange, maybe. And then keep the pink color down there. And then make this part yellow, maybe, even. Almost like, just makes maybe the starfish look more interesting if there's more color variation. And maybe add some white. Maybe. Not sure. All right, I'm gonna add some lighting on this little shell or rock. Not sure what it is actually right now, what I want it to be at this moment, but I kind of like these little white rocks, but I don't want to add too much. I'm going to try to add some wet sand over here, because I feel like this area, once I've added starfish and rocks here, this area feels really empty. So I feel like I need to add something just to kind of balance out the composition a little bit. And maybe kind of surround this and like almost make it feel like it's in like a safety kind of bubble more instead of just empty space over here. This might be one of my focal points. So maybe it just needs to be surrounded with a bit of love here. Something interesting. That kind of looks cool. I guess some water can, like, when the water retracts, it might kind of swirl around. Like if this was like a hump of sand that maybe the water would not get wet if it came up this far. It is possible that water would kind of curl around in a circle, perhaps. Just makes this elevation a little bit higher, maybe. Maybe make it a little bit darker in this corner. I do think this looks better than it did before. This kind of encloses, maybe gives more focus to the starfish that I put down. I'm going to do another layer and maybe try to add some blue reflection to this wet sand. Maybe I'll add some yellow to this part of the sand to add even more focus to this starfish. You know, if I'm planning maybe to have this to be a main subject or just something for someone to focus on in the painting. You can use value and the composition and the brightness and contrast to kind of make it more interesting and have people focus on it more. I still feel something's missing over here. I'm going to do a new layer. I'm going to try maybe bringing the water a little bit more forward. Probably not. Maybe it just needs, it needs something. I'm not quite sure what. This feels a little bit empty, or a little bit uninteresting over there for this whole space. So maybe I just need to change this shape and make it a little bit more interesting. Maybe it does need like some little rocks or something to kind of give it a little bit more interest. See, everything you add, it's going to change up your composition, and so you just kind of have to go back and forth and make sure you add details and different aspects once your composition becomes unbalanced. I don't know if I like this horizontal white direction shape here. I don't know if it's working. I'm going to try to take that out and maybe add a little bit more lines going forward. Yeah, see if I can add, kind of make these petal-shaped wave patterns a little bit more defined here. Kind of experiment with different shapes. Maybe I'll make like a wave here and then like a petal shape there. Looks like it's overlapping itself a little bit. Add some more transparency over in this wave. And go 10% opacity, color pick that. Kind of, sorry, that was 30%, so go 10%. Try to blend that color in. Maybe blend this blue one as well. Just trying to fiddle around to see how these shapes come together, or how I want them to come together. Yeah, that's one kind of problem that comes with not having an exact reference, is Sometimes it just takes a lot of experimenting if you don't really know what you're doing completely. If you don't have like a ton of experience with a certain subject. But all this experimenting is teaching me different principles. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to just paint for long periods of time where you're just experimenting and going back and forth and testing different things out. Be a powerful teaching tool. I kind of like that, actually. That kind of looks cool. I think I like it better. Like this blue. Or at least I like the shape better. I don't know if I like the colors, but I do like this blue right here. That looks really pretty. Just need to figure out how this water up here is going to look. Let's just fill this in, just so I have a fresh base to work off of. I want to have a variety of like the thickness of the sea foam. Like I might have a big area where it's just sea foam. Because that always looks good when you have big, medium, and small shapes of different aspects. Let me flip the canvas horizontally to see how it's looking from this view. I feel like I need to add a little bit of brown in these waves a tiny bit, because this wave looked a little bit off when I was looking at my navigator tab. This felt a little bit too unique compared to everything else. I'm just kind of painting in some brown and then going with my eraser tool to erase some of these colors on top. I'm not sure what movement to do exactly to make it look natural. Trying to add more brown up in this corner to see if I just need to follow more. Have brown in this kind of shape as well, all the way up, if that's why it wasn't coming together or not. I think I'm heading in the right direction there. It looks a lot more like flat. The ocean as a whole is in the right perspective. Because before this just looked off. Still have to fine tune some stuff, but I think that was my problem. I just needed to get some of that movement all the way up so it followed the direction of my waves up here. Let's add some color variation over here. Maybe I'll make this a little bit more of this dark blue color, but still keep that same movement, maybe? Just to try to blend it in a little bit. I'll erase that stuff on top here to keep that there. I'm gonna do a new layer. Try to add maybe a little bit more cyan blue over here. I kind of like that when I had that bright cyan over here in this corner. Yeah, it's a lot of experimenting right now, so I really don't know what I'm doing. I know the basic idea, but how to make this all come together. You know, every color, every value is gonna make it look different, so I don't always know exactly. what to do. So I just do a lot of experimenting here. I'm gonna go 10% there. Color pick that so it's really soft. 30%. I think I'm liking this a little bit better now. I think I finally got a little bit of it correct. This area. I think it's almost like this whole forward motion is like part of its own wave, and then there should be like a separation between it where it starts this kind of horizontal motion. Maybe it can be a really subtle transition, but I think I like that blue over there. So maybe I'll erase that and put that back in. Let's do a new layer and put a little bit more sky reflection here. I'm going to kind of fade this out. Just trying to define these waves a little bit more. So maybe I'll put some sky reflection right on the top here. And then I'll color pick an in-between color and kind of fade it down into this wave. Maybe I'll brighten this area up. Tiny bit on top. Maybe more cyan color. Maybe this is like a really bright sun glare. Because I don't think this would be sea foam, you know, all the sea foams down here, but that doesn't mean there can't be other white parts of the water, as long as I can make it clear that it's sun reflection. Let me flip it the other way to see how it looks the other direction. I think I like just that one bright flare there. I don't know if I should add it in any other areas, but I might want to make some blue areas, some blue areas like this, a little bit more blue or bright. Kind of like there's sky reflection on this water. Because if this area should be either transparent or reflecting a lot of light from the sky. So it should probably be a brighter blue if I don't want it to be brown. Because just the in-between color just kind of looks kind of gross, kind of muddy. So I kind of like to go either transparent or reflective and do less of the mixed effect. Let's really make it look like it's reflecting the sky by adding maybe a sun flare, really white or a light blue in that area. It kind of looks nice. I'm gonna do a new layer to kind of save that. It's looking really nice in my Navigator tab. Like overall, I like the colors so far. I'm gonna add a little bit darker blue. Gonna start adding some value to these areas right here. Try to define these shapes. Define it a little bit more and add some interest. Maybe I'll add this dark blue all the way up here as well. Let's go to, I just color pick this dark blue and probably go to 30% maybe 10%, and try to bring a tiny bit of that down there. Add some wave shapes. I don't know how much of this dark blue I want though, because it might be a little bit too dark. I'm going to do a kind of blue, maybe I'll do a blue kind of overwash of this to try to fade that dark blue in a little bit. And a little bit of dark brown in this area. Punch up the value a little bit, make it kind of a little partner to this dark brown. And I can always kind of hide the layer that I just painted to see if I improved anything or if I kind of ruined an area that I previously really liked. I think I'm gonna do the eraser tool and just erase a little bit up here, because I don't know if I like the line going all the way to off the page. Kind of like that kind of blurred area up in this corner. Let's see. Also going to erase this part because I actually kind of liked this area as well. I think I'm going to add a little bit of lighter blue on top here, kind of make a sky reflection. The top of this, the tip of this wave here. Trying to decide how much detail to add, because I remember I kind of do want this soft transition, but I'm getting to the point of the painting where if I do want detail, I should probably start adding it. Because too little detail just won't be interesting, you know? So I do like detail. I just don't want to make it look too busy, or, you know, the water to start looking too choppy, because I want this to be really calm and peaceful. I think this line here is making this wave look like it's popping up, where it should be just more flowing, like it's not a separated wave, like it's not a huge wave. So I might need to blend these colors. I'm just going to try to see if it makes it less of a huge, like almost like it's like a coming up, like a crescent wave or something. I don't want it to look like it's doing that. Maybe if I have it kind of blending into parts of it. It's tricky. Tricky. So it's like maybe you can see the top of it more. Because this is like you're looking, you know, there's no sky or horizon line, so that kind of indicates that you're looking down. And so you're going to see the tops of the waves more than you usually would if you were just looking straight out at an ocean, you know? So maybe I just need to make these top, like the top of this wave a little bit wider, a little bit thicker. Then it might blend together better, I don't know. Like this is the top of the wave. Maybe I'll make this top of the wave thicker too. Just make all these waves a little bit thicker so it looks like you're looking at the tops of them. Like you can see more of the top. Maybe that will help. I'm going to probably actually put some blue here. I don't want to get too much white. So I'll blend the blue back in here maybe. Do some cyan colors. Just feel like something's off still. Something's not quite right. or something just could be better than it is right now. Still hasn't registered completely with the vision I want. I think I like how I widened that area. Not completely sure about this dark stripe I added. Maybe I'll erase some of it. Or all of it. Let's just erase all of it. I'll do a new layer now because I think I've improved it from the last layer. Let's see if we can improve it more. Let me flip the other direction. Just gonna maybe just add some more sky reflection. Maybe I don't need to add more stripes of blue and dark blue. Maybe the water just needs a little bit of light blue on top. Maybe I just need to do thicker stripes because this is, as I said before, this is like a top view. So maybe we'll see more of a sky reflection, I don't know. The more of the tops of the waves. Be less skinny. I don't know if I like that. But I don't know if I don't like it either. Just gonna use my eraser tool, maybe make it faded, maybe in on the ends. I'm gonna try like a flare of blue along this edge, just to try to give some variation to the color value here. Maybe some more, let's do some really subtle details here. I'm gonna do like a light blue, but do like 10% opacity, and then see if I can add just like a few lines. Maybe I'll add a new layer, do it on a different layer so I can erase it in different parts of it. I'll just paint over it more often where I want to be slightly brighter. 10% opacity is kind of nice for that because it starts off really subtle and then you can get really bright if you just paint a few times in that spot. Kind of like that. A little bit more detail. It's a little bit too curved there. Let's keep it a little bit more going in this direction. Let's color pick this and make that brighter and maybe a little bit more cyan. And still go to 10% and just maybe build up some highlights on that too. Just a really bright kind of flare. I just have to paint over it. A couple times and it can make a really nice little bright spot. Let's try making a super bright spot in this area. Like maybe this is like sparkly water where the sun's hitting it more. Let's make a super bright spot here so it kind of matches that kind of feeling. The sun reflecting off of it. Let's go to 60% opacity just so I don't have to paint so much. Try to get this wave. Like where does this wave start? And should it have a white line all the way across, or should it kind of blend into this other water? Because I still don't want it to look like it's rising up out of the water. It's just kind of flowing out onto the beach. So if I have too much contrast, it might start to look like that. Maybe I'll paint a bright color there. Does that kind of look cool? A little bit. Just separate that light green from that shape right there. I'm going to try to add a little bit more value right over here. Maybe add like a, kind of try even or soften these lines up at the top of this wave. Because you don't want harsh lines all the way across. You want soft lines, and you want both soft lines and hard lines. Yeah, that might looks a little bit better. Let's sharpen this part up again, because I like that sharp shape there. I like that softness right there that I added in. Let's see. Yeah. I'm going to flip my canvas. And let's see if I can add a little bit of white over here. It just looks a little bit too boring and plain over in this area. I want to see if adding a little bit of detail will make this a little bit more interesting. Don't want to go overboard though, because I like that blue flare. Let's add a little bit of green. Kind of brighten up this green a little bit. Make it a more pretty color. Let's go to a nice cyan blue. Put it right at the edge of that green as it fades into this darker cyan blue. Let's put a little bit of that green down here as well. Maybe not. Maybe you just need a good, just in one spot up there, has good balance. I think I'm going to make this starfish here be at a different dimension. Because right now it kind of almost makes this look like it's an up-close perspective of the beach. And I don't know if I really like that. I kind of want this to look like you're a little bit farther away. But the size of this starfish is throwing me off a little bit. So I'm going to make a new layer. A highlight on part of the sand to kind of make it its own hill. Just adding bright contrast next to each other just pushes it into a different dimension. So now the starfish, just by adding this little white line here, it's just separated it onto its own piece of sand that's maybe above this or closer to the viewer than the water is. So I kind of feel like this area is a little bit boring, like there's not a lot going on. So I think I'm going to add another layer here. I'm just going to make another hill that's even closer to the viewer. And maybe I could add like a tree on it, like a palm tree. Or, I don't know if I like that quite. Maybe that's overused. Maybe it doesn't fit it, the painting quite right. Maybe I'll just do some simple pieces of grass. I don't want an empty space here, so maybe I'll move the grass a little bit over so there's not such a big empty area over there. Might give this area a little bit more room to breathe as well. Because I don't necessarily want this grass to feel like it's crowding or infiltrating this area. Maybe I'll move it over just a tiny bit. So it's right at the edge, so there's no empty space over in that area. I can just paint with black at first to get the shape I want, and then I can come back and add some highlights and things to make it look more real. But since this might be my closest layer, it could have a lot of black in it, because the closer things get to the viewer, the darker the value can be. So sometimes if this is like in a shadow, it could be pure black if I wanted it to. I don't think I want too much grass over here, because like I said, I don't want it to infiltrate this area and to crowd it. Needs some room to breathe here, those starfish over there. Let me flip it back, see how it looks from this view. Yeah, that kind of looks nice. I wonder if it might look nice to have a little hill here, like it's framing from both sides. No, I think that's overcrowding this. It's too symmetrical. I'll just leave this open for now. Okay, let me lock this layer. And I'm going to just see if I should add just a tiny bit of color so it's not just the silhouette. Let's try to paint in some green here. Let me make my brush soft. And maybe go to 10% opacity. And the sun's coming from this direction, so I might start painting my light colors kind of on the left side of the grass. And also at the top of the grass, because the more light's going to hit the top of the pieces of grass, just because it gets thinner as it goes up, so there's less grass covering or shadowing the areas at the top. As it gets lower, the clump will get darker, just because the grass is shadowing itself. I don't know if I want this hill to be in shadow, or if I want the light to be shining on it a little bit. So I'll just play around, see what kind of looks good. I think maybe half in shadow, half in light, like this area in shadow, and then this part of the grass could be more bright. Yeah, this transparency lock is really helpful when painting these complicated shapes in front of something else that's a different color. It really helps you be able to fade colors out on those shapes. So the light's coming from this direction, so this clump of grass might be creating a shadow of itself. It's creating a shadow on this grass underneath it. I'm going to unlock this layer and draw in a little bit more detail along this edge. Going to paint a little bit of grass in front of this clump of grass. This is a more gray green because I'm thinking this part of the grass is going to be in shadow, so you want it more gray or more blue. Maybe I'll add a little bit of blue to this grass. I'll lock the layer again and just do a little flare of blue to kind of indicate it's in shadow. That area is in shadow. I'll unlock the layer and paint in some more dark, because that blue reflection is not going to be everywhere in the shadowed areas. It's kind of like it's sky reflection, but it's bounce light from the sky, so it's not super bright like on the waves here, but it still doesn't show up everywhere. You know, it's kind of similar principle. There's areas where it's just black, and there's areas where it shows that sky reflection, that bounce light, that blue bounce light. Let's do some really bright grass. Well, maybe just at the tips of this grass here. And I'll do some darker grass in front of it. So I'm going to lock the layer again and add some green to this dark grass. Give it some variety at the top here. Yeah, grass is a mixture of faded values and then sharp values, just like the ocean is, or most things in art. You know, it's a kind of a mixture. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between fading out colors and then adding some sharp contrasting colors to kind of indicate like a different dimension, like the grass is overlapping each other. Faded colors often indicate the shapes are at the same dimension, or they're, you know, at the same dimension kind of blending into each other. And sharp value changes indicate like shapes that are crossing over one another, or shapes that are in front of one another. It's really interesting how so many things in art have the same rules. Like, you can apply it to so many different subjects in art. You know, just having that few simple rules and you just kind of follow them. You just have good variety, have soft and hard shapes, have interesting value changes. Let's lock the layer again, and I'm going to kind of do a overall lightening of this area. Maybe not that much, just a tiny bit of lightening. And then I'll also do a flare of kind of a bluish color to kind of blend out these harsh shapes a little bit. I don't know what color of blue I want. Maybe a more pretty blue. I'll go 10% over here and just faintly type in that blue. I don't know if I like that. I think I'm going to make a new layer, but I'm not just going to make a new layer. I'm going to duplicate this layer. This is what I do to save my progress on a layer that I want to stay separate from the rest of my painting. I just duplicate it, and then I hide that duplicated layer and continue painting, because then if I need to look back to see if I've made my painting better or worse, I can just go back to that hidden layer to see. With a layer, you know, in front of something else, you know, you want the ability to erase, you know, or lock the layer. And if you have multiple layers for this single piece of grass, you won't be able to erase it all at once. So I just duplicate the layer and then hide it, and that enables me to paint and erase like I want. Add some highlights down this grass, maybe a little bit. Add some white to the tip of this. Let's unlock that layer. Make it thinner at the top a little bit more. Let's flip the canvas. I'm going to lock this layer and add a little bit of highlight. Maybe a more yellow color. More yellow highlight here. Flip it back. Some more highlight. Now let's see how that compares to the underlayer here. This hidden layer. So that was before. This is after. I think I improved it a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more blue grass right in front of here. Or maybe I'll add a rock or something right in this corner. Kind of frame in this grass, the bottom of this grass a little bit. Just adding a little bit of bounce light here. This part of this grass might be a little bit strong. I might need to tone it down a little bit, but it kind of just adds a little bit of interest there. Can add a little bit of more bounce light up on this edge of the grass. Adding more bounce light, like sky reflection, but it's in the shadowed area. It kind of gives the impression like the material is more wet or shiny. Like maybe this is a more glossy grass. Add a little bit more bounce light on this rock. More shadow. Maybe make two rocks here, so it has a little partner. I could even put some, maybe I'll do a new layer. Just put some grass in front of this rock. I don't know what shade to do. Like, should I just do pure black? Black grass? Because this is like the closest grass there is to the viewer. So it's probably going to be the darkest if it's in shadow. I don't know. I don't know if that makes it better or not. It might make it a little bit too busy over there. Yeah, I kind of like the rock just being the closest to the viewer. So maybe I'll just keep it like that. Let's add another flare of color, maybe right here. Like make the grass really green in that area. Maybe I can make the grass more orange in another area. I don't know, maybe that's too crazy. Let's add some more green color up here. Maybe make it look less yellow. I'm going to duplicate this layer and then hide the lower layer just to save my progress on my grass layer. I'm going to unlock it, it's transparency, and let me make my brush hard. Maybe add a little bit more detail. Just trying to make a few more dark shapes and light shapes. Let me lock that layer and kind of lighten up a few of those tips, those grass tips. Let me soften my brush. Kind of blend those all together. Make it really bright over there. That light, that looks kind of cool. Like a really bright spot in the grass. Maybe a bright tip right on the edge here. Maybe I should add a little bit of tan color to it. Like maybe the grass is dried out in some areas. I kind of like that. Yeah. I think at this point, I'm basically finished with my painting. I think I'm just going to go through and add some details to everything, like just touch up, very minor touch-ups, and just adjustments. So I think I have all the aspects of it that I want. I think it's flowing together pretty good. So I might speed up parts of this. I'm just going to fade out this white a little bit right here, so it's not so like a line across the edge here. And I might add a little bit of white down here as well. Let's go 10% opacity and kind of paint in a bit of white down here just so it matches a little bit of this value. Might help it seem like the same type of sand. I'm gonna maybe add a little bit of blue in this wet sand. A little bit more blue, just to give some more color to this brown area over here. That will kind of make it look more wet. Maybe not more wet, but just more reflective, more shiny, I guess I should say. Just adding a little bit more white to this sky reflection. See if I can make it shine even more. And adding a lot of white here might actually look kind of good, just, because the sun is shining in this direction, so there might be a big sun glare right on this sand here. Let's add a tiny bit more blue on this sand over here as well. Alright, so I think I'm finished. I got in all the detail that I had patience for, and I like the overall look. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please comment and maybe leave a suggestion on what you'd like me to paint next. Thanks for watching. See you next time.